Hey everybody, it's Chris. Welcome back to another review of Deadly Class, this time with my Fizzace in it because my entire rig for recording these videos is kind of on the fritz right now, which is part of the reason why it's been so long since you've seen a new video for me. So this video is going to be a little different. I'm kind of excited to test it out though, because even though you're going to be subject to my weird face and my giant beard during this, this is going to be a much faster video for me to shoot, edit, and release than what I normally do, so it would be a good option for times when I have time crunches. So if you guys are okay with this format, let me know in the comments, and I'll put it in the bag of tricks for when I want to get a video out but don't have enough time to really put the energy and effort into what you normally see on the channel. So let's just jump in. If this is your first time here, I take TV shows and movies based on books and compare and contrast them to the source material. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of my future videos, and click that notification icon to join the notification squad, as it were, and be the first to know when something new drops. So just a quick warning here, since I do take the TV show and the source material and contrast them, there is a chance that I might convey some information that is spoilery in its nature. If that is a problem for you, go ahead and turn this off, and you could always come back and watch these videos after the season is done. Okay, with that out of the way, I think it's time to just jump in and get this thing going. Okay, first up, we're going to look at stolen needles. In the comic, Marcus is at a children's home and not a boys' home, and this is incredibly important for this moment in the story. When the guards notice that the needles are missing, they do take Marcus, but they also take a young girl who was seated next to him named Sonia, and they both go to the headmistress's office for the interrogation. This might not seem that important in the grand scheme of things, and it might not be, except for the fact that it gives us a glimpse into the pre-King's Dominion mind of Marcus. When he is searched and they don't find the needles, they immediately pin the theft and disappearance on Sonia, and Marcus stands there silently and allows them to do it. He is willing to sacrifice an innocent in order to protect his plan of vengeance against Chester and the headmistress, which is an important thing to know about him going into his time at King's. In the show, you just don't see this level of ruthlessness in him before he has his time at King's, and I think that is a pretty important thing to know. Next up, we're going to talk about the guards. In the comic, Marcus kills the two guards that burst into his room after he has poisoned Chester and calls for help. This is an important change in the show because before getting to King's, Marcus has already killed 3 people. The 2 guards that came into his room, plus another guard he runs into on the way to the headmistress, and maimed Chester. It speaks volumes to who and what he is before he even sets foot into King's and is under the tutelage of Master Lin and the teachers at the academy. Okay, next up we're going to talk about Mrs. Ranks. So this is a small but interesting change from the source material. In the comics, she survives her time at the children's home. We don't find out until much later that she did, because everyone thinks she died in the fire or was killed by Chester, but she actually survives, and we meet her again when they break into the house that Chester and his crew are living in the penultimate battle between the two groups, and you find that she is being kept in a dog cage like an animal by Chester the whole time. And it's not super important, but it's another interesting twist to the story and change between the show and the source material without any real reason why they did that. Shabnam's family is never really involved in Chester. He's not taking up residence in their home, any of that stuff. So I'm not really sure why they decided to go that route, but it's interesting to see the differences in the way they play the stories in the comic versus the show. Okay, next up we have Marcus tells the truth. This is a really interesting change. Almost everything happens exactly the same between the comic and the show, except for what happens after Saya reads the journal and they have their little talk. In the comic, she embraces him and tells him she's so sorry for what he's been through. And they have this moment of tenderness and togetherness that is then interrupted by Maria, who is very much not happy about how close they are. I'm not really sure why they chose to remove that from the show when we're supposed to be cheering for the trajectory of these two characters to meet. You know, Saya and Marcus, they're the Shakespearean couple in this story that we want to see to get together, even though it will probably end in tragedy. And so removing a moment of that kind of tenderness and togetherness from the show was a little odd to me, so I thought I would mention it. Okay, next up we have Chico's head. This was all new for the show, and I gotta say, I really, really loved it. In the comic, you really don't see Chico's head again until after a long time after they go and meet Chester and his family, and you see his head in an entirely different context that is not good. So I really loved the fact that they pulled that into Chester's story and had him concocting this entire relationship between himself and Chico's disembodied head. It was a great look into the psychosis and insanity that you saw in Chester. You really don't get that in the comic. He's obviously nuts because of what he's doing, but it almost feels like in the comics that he's not quite as crazy as everyone thinks. He's very targeted and very serious about what he does. He's very much like a craftsman in his approach to being a serial killer, almost like it's just work he has to do to get to his fame, and it's not a twisted psyche doing it as much as this is just what I'm going to do and I'm going to go do it. And I liked being able to see that he is nuts and seeing more emotion from him, especially when we get to like the bathtub scene, which just did not play in the comics at all. So very nice job, writers, in making Chester's character way more interesting and scarier, in my opinion, by showing how crazy he actually is. Okay, next up we have the Scorpio slasher. I don't know how I feel about this really. On one hand, the character, which is new for the show, and the actor who is portraying it are fantastic. Well written, well acted, well executed, across the board. The problem is that by introducing his character and using him in this way, specifically in this episode, they have taken a lot of agency and important moments away from Saya's character, because in the comics, she's the one who finds where Chester's hideout is, and she does it by using her skills, her determination, her courage. She's canvassing the streets of the city every night for weeks until she finds where they are hiding, and it just seemed like a waste to take that away from her character and drop it on this completely new character that, for no real reason, you could have still had all the beautiful moments where he's basically telling Marcus that he's a serial killer waiting to happen, just like the Scorpio slasher is. You could have all of that still with them just going to visit him and getting some advice maybe, instead of letting him out, and then having Saya continue her storyline of going out now armed with some information and being able to track Chester and his crew down. So not really sure, again, torn on how I feel about it, because in one sense it was great, and in another it was kind of frustrating. And so finally we're going to talk about the lens. So this was obviously new for the show, since we know next to nothing about Lynn at this point in the comic, and he certainly did not have a sister introduced, or even a family that they talk about at all. It is amazing to me how little this version of Lynn has in common with his comic book counterpart. I mean, he's a one-dimensional, kind of generic, most of the time boring character in the comics that pops in here and there just to push the narrative along and to introduce a big twist at the end of the first volume of the comic, and then he's just gone again. And so having a much more nuanced and robust portrayal of this character in the show is fantastic, especially, again, when you have Benedict Wong being the one who's delivering that performance. I am super excited about this direction in the storyline because of what it could hint at and what it suggests coming into the future. Having Lynn have a hidden family, and not only a hidden family, I thought this was going to be like a new family. He'd met someone, they had a new daughter, and he's like a replacement and he was protecting them, but it's actually his original family who everyone thinks is dead. And so the connotations of that going forward are very exciting, and I'm looking forward to and very excited to see how in the next couple of episodes They pull that storyline out, that thread, and what ramifications it will have for Lin, his family, and his sister going forward. Okay, that's it for me. Again, I know it's kind of weird with my face being in your face, as opposed to just lovely images of pretty people going across the screen, but you gotta do what you gotta do. I didn't want to put off the videos any longer, and while I'm trying to get everything set back up and working again, at least I can get this out and we can talk about what was different. Also, because these are way easier to make and faster, over the next 3 to 4 days, there will be a video every day catching us up on Deadly Class, getting us to the season finale, which is tonight as I am recording this video. So yeah, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give it a thumbs down. It's free internet. Won't hold it against you. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about anything I didn't cover. And I look forward to talking to you guys in the next video. Take it easy.